species have a culture. Our species has one too. We have certain ways we conduct ourselves, and that's why we see so much commonality when we look at indigenous people, no matter where we look. And those people lived everywhere, right? So it started to occur to me, hey, there's actually wild people around. And so I was like, I want to check this out. And then I found out, well, we're killing almost all of them. In fact, we're killing them all really fast. In fact, we might get into a situation where they're not even here anymore. You guys all aware of that? And it's not just kill them, it's also assimilate them. So there's like, oh yeah, my family's I got a quarter wild in me. Who's got a little bit of native blood in them from some culture? Cool, so that's called assimilation. Now, this is where, if you're wondering what the hell does this have to do with food or nutrition, here's what it has to do with. When you got people around talking about what's the natural diet for people, when people are arguing what's the natural food, what should we be eating, what do natural humans eat, and they start going, oh, natural humans eat only fruits. That's it. Or like, no, natural people eat green smoothies. Or no, natural people, oh, they eat sprouts and they eat wheatgrass and sprouted seeds or whatever. And they're all arguing about what the natural diet for humans is. Anybody been part of any of these conversations or seen any of these books? And they're all talking about like, what's our natural diet? And they're kind of just making it up. They're just making it up based on what? Like based on just random theories. So it occurred to me, well, there's wild people still. We don't have to go back to the Garden of Eden mythology to try to understand what natural people eat. Because I came out of the fruitarian world. Anyone ever done this before? Anyone lived on 100% raw food diet for any period of time? Okay, everyone with your hands up. Leave your hands up. Leave your hands up. You guys, everyone look around. Okay, now put your hands down and put your hand up if when you were on that diet, you went around telling people that you'd found it. Because I did that. Right. And then, did anyone go around doing that and then start to develop some weird problems on that diet? And then you kind of don't want to like talk about it because you still want to believe that's the thing, right? It occurred to me at one time in my life that must be the natural diet for people. I really bought into the idea we must be vegetarians. That just made sense to me. I really bought into the idea that fruits must be a natural food for people. Who thought that? Fruits must be a natural food for people. I thought for sure. I mean, it was like everywhere I went, every time I saw fruit, right? I thought if that was in nature, I would be going for that thing. In fact, to the exclusion of vegetables, because when you're out in nature, it's like green, 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 and then a fruit's like colored and sugary, sweet, tastes good. I was like, this has got to be the natural food. I actually remember the day I was sitting outside of a Shaw's Market eating, it's a supermarket where I live, eating a mango, and it was like, bing, that's a human food. That's what occurred to me. This must be a human food. Because they're good, right? I didn't know then about Canis lupus familiaris. I hadn't thought much about indigenous people at the time. I was just trying to figure out what the thing was. Plus, I was subtly influenced by a story about a naked man and a woman and a fruit tree. Subtly influenced. It just occurred to me. These days, I'm into the idea of wild food. Has anybody been foraging for wild food? Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. By the way, you guys live in a really unique climate. Things grow really well here. Some plants grow so well here they drive your whole economy, but you guys have a long growing season. February, where I live, things aren't started yet. In fact, it's snowing right now where I live. Where you guys live, it's like, wow, it's spring here, eh? Things are already like, we were harvesting miner's lettuce today. I saw thistles today this tall. I was like, wow, you guys have a long season here. And that means things can grow here that aren't necessarily from here, but it's really easy to have species set up. So if you're foraging, you may be encountering all kinds of interesting foods that you would normally have encountered, say, 150 years ago. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Some of those foods that you wouldn't have encountered would be foods like the fruits that are here, because most of those have escaped, right, from farming. You guys know what I mean by that? Everyone's with me on that? I started thinking about fruits at first, thinking these have got to be our natural foods. And then I started finding out that the apple the apple, the symbol of fruit, the very symbol of fruit, is a domesticated plant. Like the gray wolf, right? The apple is like a Chihuahua. The apple's like a Great Dane. It's not really a food from nature. It's something human beings have teased out of a natural plant over the course of thousands and thousands of breeding seasons. Does that make sense for everybody? In fact, the original apple is a berry. And put your hand up if you think it's probably really sweet tasting. Right? In fact, the modern apple is 60 times, not percent, times sweeter than the original apple. Where'd that apple come from, the original apple? Anyone know where in the world?
Kazakhstan.
Who said that? Dude, I love you. You guys stop answering questions. You're the punchline killer. Okay, barring that, now think about this. The apple, and why am I talking about apples and dogs? We could talk about much more exotic stuff, but it doesn't really get close to home the way the apple is like the symbol of fruit for us. Isn't it? Everyone, we all grew up with it. Because one a day does what? Right, we've been indoctrinated into this apple cult almost. Little did we know that the apple came from Kazakhstan. And that over the course of thousands of generations, it was created. And we have all these different breeds of apples now. So when it's apple season, you go, and how many apples usually at the store? Like 5 different types where I live. What do you guys have here?
10.
About 5, 10 maybe? 10? By the way, it's really wild because I live in a place where we grow apples.
Yeah.
Right? New England is we have massive apple orchards everywhere. Most of them abandoned now. But we have apple orchards, and in the apple season, we can't even get our own apples unless you go to the orchard. You go to the supermarket, Washington, Chile, Washington, New Zealand.
Fuji.
Yeah, the Fuji. And I'm going like, where's my apples? Where are they? Like people in New Zealand are like, oh, Maine apples. That's really weird, but not only that is that weird, what's weird is that we don't even know where the food comes from. And the apple is sort of the symbol. Now I know because you guys are all Kool-Aid drinking indoctrinates like me, we may think of natural food, we might not think of apples anymore. We might think, durian or something more exotic. But remember when you did? Remember when apple was like the symbol of nutritious natural food? Well, it turns out it's not a natural food at all. Even more interesting to me was finding out that not long ago, people didn't eat apples at all. Did you know that? Like when the colonists came to this country, apple wasn't a food. It wasn't considered palatable. What was it used for, you guys think?
Cider.
Oh, cider.
What kind of cider?
Hard cider.
Hard cider. The history of the apple is not about food. The history of the apple is about ethanol. By the way, ethanol, and this is important for this community to know if you don't already know this, if you haven't come across this information yet. See, the health food world kind of started actually with Kellogg. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yes.
That's actually where you can trace it back to. All these people out today, myself included, who are out educating about food, no matter where you find them, we all come out of this lineage that comes from Kellogg. And by the way, all that was really about was agriculture. About stripping natural lands of their perennial plants and putting in monocropped annual plants and then selling them to people. And in order to do that and disrupt traditional nutrition, which had been going on for a real long time. Look, when these amazing people whose names I won't mention get up here in the next couple of weeks to tell you about what you shouldn't do and what you shouldn't eat and why it's so bad for you, ask this question. How did we get here then? If that's what people were eating the last 100,000 years, like when did these things become bad for us? In fact, out of that whole thing is, the whole health food movement is very puritanical. It's about restriction, and it's about selling certain monocrops, which people don't realize. Like it took us a long time to sort out that soy is just not a human food. Does everyone now get it? Yeah. Soy, breast tumors, fibroid tumors, cervical cancer, testicle cancer. prostate cancer, breast tissue in men, mood swings and PMS in women. Like soy. Remember, I mean, I bought soy. I was like in the soy cult.